Good morning and welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. This morning we're going to have a couple of perspectives, or maybe more than two. Who knows? In any event, by the way, folks, tomorrow is Veterans Day. And as one of them, this old geezer wants to remind you, if you see a veteran out on the street, take him into Old Joe's or the guest house and buy him a bump or a cup of coffee. No, seriously, Veterans Day, November the 11th, and that reminds me, old Billy will get his sidewalk flags out, and Mrs. Busby will have her sidewalk flag. That goes from a tradition I started way back with Troy Hanger, my old neighbor on Lincoln Avenue there. And one day I said we'd have a contest to see who could get the most flags out, Peoria Street or Lincoln Avenue, on the days when you're supposed to fly your flags. And so tomorrow you'll see a plethora. That means a lot to some of you who didn't spell that. A plethora of flags. You're going to see tons of flags out on Lincoln Avenue. Troy and Norm Newhouse and Dr. David Gerlach, they go to great lengths to make sure that Lincoln Avenue is well marked, and so tomorrow you'll get a treat from Union Street clear on down to, I don't know how far it goes, but in any event, each house has flags. So Veterans Day tomorrow, remember that, folks. And as you remember them, on a serious note, remember those who are still fighting that war, physically and or mentally, and as you think about your charities, Tunnels to Towers or Wounded Warriors might be something you might want to consider. Speaking of Veterans Matters, and then we're going to have Mrs. Busby introduce our very, very important guest. I have a note here from the Logan County Veterans Assistance Commission. Mr. Danny Benedict is in charge of that operation there, and we're doing a great job for us. And this comes under the heading on the letterhead of SIU Medicine, Family Medicine. So each day, every day is Veterans Day. Thank you for your service. November the 12th from noon to, that's the next 2 days from now, folks. From noon till 3 o'clock, it says 1,500 hours. Those of you who can't convert that, that's 1,500 hours. At the Logan County Public Health, a box lunch is going to be served for the first 25 who show up from noon until 1 o'clock. That'd be 1,300 hours. Receive a free wellness checkup, and they're offering a free COVID-19 vaccination, both Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. Bring your insurance card if you have one. You may also schedule a free dental appointment. You have to check your eligibility below here. Vet consultation and free mental health. So there's a good time to do something for yourself, veterans. So we appreciate the job Daddy Benedict is doing there for us. Let's get right down to serious business and introduce our guest, Mrs. Busby.
Yes. My plan A, gentlemen, was to have you on every month with an update on the progress at the Logan County Courthouse. And last month, you may or may not have noticed I screwed up. I think that was totally my fault, actually.
And a culp on her part.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that. But anyway, this has to cover 2 months, so they will be speaking very fast. So pay close attention. And also, you both have on lovely new shirts. And are these available to the public?
They are. We've put together both heather gray and this banana yellow, kind of a safety yellow, but they are at Small Town Creations. These are all places on the town square that Flossie's and Delzina's and the Hallmark shop.
Good.
The ladies there are doing a phenomenal job. Julie, Heather, and
so we go in there and buy a shirt at the Hallmark shop.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
They're a nice likeness of the courthouse.
This artwork was done with the cooperation of a lady, Georgia, at So Personal. She has a business and worked really, really, really well with us. David's wife, Melanie, we all got together and they did the majority of the layout and the premise. The back has the primary companies at this particular point in time that are working on the courthouse. We're excited about it. All of the profit proceeds go back to the restoration project.
Now, this is
But
also
gotta
a
be
keepsake.
A
These are,
spendy piece of real estate.
Yes, we need all the help we can get.
Yes.
but this has gone on for so long, and just by necessity, by the very nature of the requirements of the job, these two shirts that you have, they're both good. I like the banana yellow. It stands out a little more. Those are keepsakes, historical.
Yes.
They'll become historical artifacts. Seriously, down the road.
Yeah, wear it once and put it in your drawer.
There you go.
Yeah, seriously.
Get it out for special occasions. I'm sure there's going to be notable dates on a yearly basis after the restoration is completed, where Dave will lead the parade around the town square and honor the project and the county.
Or at least
be most suitable to wear at that time.
At
Do
least
you,
stand in
do you
front of
have
the
a big
library.
baton that you can lead the march with then?
No, I don't think.
Or
I'd go
they'll
that
just
far.
give you a stick?
In fact, I just asked him what's in
Oh,
that
say,
coffee.
speaking of marching, the old fellow would like to roll the clock back for just a few seconds. I forgot. This is really important. On my kudos. Yesterday, we received a visit from the police at our house, and there was a reason for that. A mistake was made in dialing, and 911 was called. And I thought that the mistake had been rectified by telephone, and it was all just one of those things that happens. Well, in a little bit, here comes a policeman to our front door, just checking. So kudos to Chief Volakovic and Officer Sullivan, who was the one who made the appearance. Your police are at work, folks, so buy him a cup of coffee or take him into Haji's new donut place and buy him a donut. That was very nice and very professionally done. The whole thing was just left you with a good taste in your mouth. So, Chief, take Sullivan out and buy him a cup of coffee.
There you go. There you
Very
go.
nice.
Now, fellas, how are you coming uptown there? I've heard some remarks about I haven't seen anybody up on top of the courthouse, and people were wondering what you were doing. But I'm sure there's plenty of inside work to be
Playing
done.
cards inside there.
There's a lot of planning, development, research.
Oh, sure.
The initial erection of the steel scaffolding was to allow myself and the design team, CTS, and all the participants to get up and examine the structure and see exactly what we have to work with.
Right.
Once you gather this information, there's pieces that you have to take off, pieces that you have to remove in order to inspect what's underneath or within and get an idea, how do we put this back together? Once we take it apart, how do we put it back together again? Assess, analyze, and determine. Now, all of that is accomplished, then you go back to the drawing board and lay out exactly the materials that are going to be needed, the procedures that are going to be involved with the actual work process. During that phase, you probably don't and have not seen a lot of activity up on the scaffolding. On a regular basis, I go up, one of our team will go up and double check a measurement, double check a situation or a condition that exists to make sure that as we are in the design phase that we make all the right I's dotted and all the T's crossed properly.
Oh, you of course you have to do that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine getting further down the pike by another month and then somebody says, you know something, I wonder why we didn't do this. You can't have that.
Well, Mr. Walter, I
It's a long
know.
time to be doing that.
I know. We all know that, would assume properly so, that scaffolding is very secure. But having said that, do you ever have second thoughts of being crawling around that high scaffolding up there, particularly if there's any wind at all?
We were chatting momentarily about the fact that there always seems to be wind up there. On a calm day down on the sidewalk or around the grounds, it can be very pleasant, and if you go up 180, 200 feet, all of a sudden it gets to be a little bit breezy. When you do have wind at the bottom, then you've most guaranteed yourself that you're going to have wind up at the top. To answer your question, I don't have any qualms at all. And that is a result of an incredible amount of time that was spent designing the support system for that steel scaffolding and being involved in watching the craftsmen put it together and knowing how it's put together and the stability that comes along with it. The only time that I give myself any question marks is if somebody presents a scenario and says, well, what happens if we get an F5 tornado? And I'll say something like, I've got more to worry about than this steel scaffolding if there's an F5 staring me at the face.
Yeah, we'll stop.
So it is incredibly secure, and that is not only for my own comfort and confidence. It is also for anybody that I might ask to go up there.
That's right.
I would never have anybody even attempt it without knowing for sure that it's secure.
Another thing that must be an issue to you is the availability of the materials that you need when you need them, because I think they're all on a ship off the West Coast.
That's going to be a problem. We have, and just everybody in everyday life is experiencing some form of delay. Whether it's I know Dave and his business, we talk about it quite often. It is exasperating. It has gone past the saying somebody is stupid and messed up. This is a situation that is, well, you can assign all kinds of adjectives to it. We won't do that this morning, but it affects everybody on a daily basis.
I appreciate you holding yourself back there.
We've gotten quite colorful at times.
I should suspect.
Yeah, but we also are keenly aware of the fact that the elements or materials that are going to be involved on this project do indeed present a situation that we have to be very aware of the fact that we may be looking at what originally would have been 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks lead time. Now we're looking at 10, 12, 14 months.
Oh my
lead
gosh.
time. In case in point, the repair that we're doing to the cupola initially, we had anticipated that being done by the end of December, plus or minus, and the availability of copper is such that we have to push that back into March or April.
My goodness.
So things we all of a sudden never had to worry about, we have to now bring into the overall planning of the project and make sure that this is still going to dovetail with this, and this is still going to interact with this. And it's a layered, from a production standpoint, there are many things that have to happen first before something else can happen. Mm-hmm. And if that item that has to be done first or second is delayed, whether the third or fourth or fifth procedure has any problems with availability on their materials, they're going to have to wait. Mm-hmm. So it's a chess game. It is a chess game, and Dave and I have been playing chess till midnight every night, trying to make sure that everything still cooperates with each other, and we can continue with the flow, albeit a lot slower than what we thought.
How do you cope when you had Plan A, and it was all set up, and it was all good and doable and workable and just A1 first class, and somebody threw a wrench in the works?
My mother,
do you
bless
cry?
her heart, oftentimes. My mother was she, bless her heart, she was my office manager for more than 25 years.
Is that right?
Oh, you're a lucky man.
And she would say almost the exact same thing. How do you do that? Day after day after day, people call and say, well, we got a problem with this, we got a problem with this. This is not the way it was told to us it was going to be done, or this is not the material that we thought, or why aren't you here doing this now? You told us you'd be here Tuesday. If we didn't have problems like that, we wouldn't be in business. Somehow you formulate, and David is the same way. If there's not a problem, he's not required. And when he get to a job, he and or I, when we approach a project, we understand that there's a series of issues that have to be resolved. And it's not just once or twice, it's repetitive. Mm-hmm. Things keep coming up. And that's the glamour, if you will, of restoration. We're not building a building that we know takes 100 concrete blocks and 22 by 4s and 10 square shingles. This is an uncharacteristically undisciplined project. There are so many unknowns that you have to deal with.
It's
So
just a
it's just par
shirky
for
toot all the
course.
time.
Beg your pardon?
Just a shirky toot all the time.
That's right, and you don't know if your powder's dry.
Yeah, see? Oofta.
648-5510 is the number you put down. Write that down. We're going to take a couple of minutes now and recognize our sponsors. And then we're going to be right back and have David Blankenship and Bill Walter with us. Right back live in the studios here, WLCN, high on the windy hill at the County Road 2250, also known as Lazy Row. Our guest this morning, David Blankenship, representing Logan County Board of Supervisors, and doing a whale of a job of representing you taxpayers. I want to say that very personally. And seated next to him is Mr. Bill Walter, who is in charge of the courthouse renovation and the dome situation, wherein if the board had not acted, the interior of our courthouse would have gone to pot. And I think that's about the most basic way to put it. And we're not out of the woods yet because you've got a lot of work to do. For those of you who might want to take a snipe at elected officials once in a while, it's okay. You pay your taxes. You can do that. But always be nice to them. We're lucky to have a man like David Blankenship, and I'm serious about this, David. I don't want to embarrass you at all. With your expertise and your interest in what's going on in our courthouse. This project, as I best understand it, you can correct me on this, has been kind of handed off to you to be the liaison between our experts on re-renovating our courthouse dome and the county board. We appreciate the fact you, number one, loan us your expertise, number two, your hours. This project has gone on longer than most people would have thought it would have. While we were giving out kudos early this morning, I think it'd be grossly inappropriate if we did not give a kudo to the voters of the district who voted this bond issue some time ago to allow us to save this beautiful architectural gem we have down there in the Logan County Courthouse. And thank goodness, pretty obviously, we have some real experts who know what the heck they're doing down there. Bill, what has been the biggest stumbling block that popped up on the horizon that you didn't anticipate?
Asking me that today as you have, I would say the pandemic. It has been, at one point in time, slow in growth, then rapid in growth as far as its effect on people and how you do business, and then how you interact with the experts that have to contribute their time and skills to lay out the procedures that will be involved, all the way to the manufacturers of the materials and equipment that you're going to use. The delays that we've seen happen, both in personnel, the awareness that we have on everybody's health, that's first and foremost. But then the effect that that has, the caution that people are now exhibiting, the reservations that they have in doing business a certain way that they're accustomed to, and all of a sudden have to change. Everything has been delayed. Some say strategically, some say just willy-nilly. But the fact remains that the schedule has been significantly altered, and this has been probably hand-in-hand coincidental with the pandemic. The 15 to 17 months, however you look at when it actually started, we've experienced significant problems achieving landmark from a schedule standpoint, and we anticipate that's going to continue through the course of the job. We're banking on the fact that it's all going to hit a certain plateau and level out. It may never come back to what we're wanting or accustomed to, but at least it will be more consistent, and it gives you something more substantial to grab onto and make plans with.
Was there not some artwork up in the dome there from the days of yore that had been covered by needed repairs and so forth?
Glass artwork or that type of thing?
Pardon, painting.
I don't recall that. I probably would have run across that.
Yeah.
I think that recalling back to one of the previous occasions that we were here, we did talk about the fact that when we get in and start working on the interior, and some of the walls are going to get painted, some of the walls are going to be not repositioned necessarily, but a door may be, from an operation standpoint, turned out as opposed to turned in. So there's going to be some work done on the inside. The painting work, if I use this as an example, many other old like state capitals and county courthouses that we've gone into, all of a sudden we'll start stripping the paint off of a particular area, and we notice underneath is a rather magnificent painting situation, whether it was obviously all done by hand, but it looks like it might have been stenciled at one point in time, but whether it's borders, whether it's different colors, et cetera. We think that in some locations, maybe around the third floor where the majestic courtroom is, we may find some of that. To this point in time, we have not.
Okay.
As far as in the attic where the dome is, you always run across artifacts, old tools. The masonry up there is full of graffiti from, Joe was here in 1956, or Annabelle. I know, Bill, your name is up in there. I won't say what's underneath that. But that is always interesting. It's like walking through a graveyard or cemetery and making observations on the tombstones. This date, whether it's Civil War era, some of those things are fascinating. And the same can be said about a lot of the signatures up there, and we photographed all of them. Some of those have pretty old dates on them, and I wouldn't think that there's any reason not to be accurate based on the penmanship and
Will there be some way that you can have an expo of these things when the work is finally done, so that people could come and see that? And here there was a little mural somebody had painted, and
Sure.
that would be interesting to people.
Yeah, we're just last week we were talking about the involvement of a professional photographer doing photographs and videos during the course of the project.
Exactly.
We are taking photographs. Angela from the newspaper is taking photographs, and even a couple of members that showed up at one of the board meetings made a note of saying, why don't we create a loop? That's my terminology, but it's a video screen that constantly keeps projecting different photographs,
A
both from an
documentary,
original,
if you will.
both from an original standpoint. This is what it was before. This is what it is during the process, and this is what it looks like after all the work has been done.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I think it'd be fascinating. And it gives-
648-5510. You taxpayers out there might have a question, Mr. Bill Walter, or your board member, David Blankenship. If you haven't noticed, you better give up your driver's license, because you don't observe very much at all. We talked to in an earlier visit, Mr. Walter, about the fact that it'll be necessary to encapsulate that dome so that you can work on the doggone thing.
Sure.
People say, well, how are they going to do that, to put a big Boy Scout tent up there? So let's address that, the fact that materials for encapsulating may not be as available as we thought.
Again, you can lump the majority of materials that are going to be involved in this project in the same category, and precede it all with delayed. And you look behind that and say, 6 to 8 weeks or 10 or 12 months, whatever the case may be. They meaning the contractor that is involved, American Scaffolding, putting up the scaffold, they do have a percentage of this reinforced polyethylene that is going to be used to encapsulate, and it comes in rolls. It's I'm sure they'll have a variety. They'll have 6-foot and 12-foot widths and 50 to 100 foot in length, and it gets unraveled and it gets secured to the steel in strategic places. And they build it up in fish scale fashion, so one layer overlaps another, and that allows some air movement and restricts moisture coming in, because it's like a fish scale, always overlapping and shedding itself down to the base. I anticipate, from a scheduling standpoint, the contractor that is working on the cupola which has just been approved. He's going to start work on putting the cupola into a position where it is totally sealed while he off-site manufactures the pieces that are going to be put back into place. We'll wrap that, bring the steel scaffolding down that's around the cupola to a point where it allows us to then encapsulate the balance of the dome, and we can begin work on that. We expect hopefully to be done somewhere around Thanksgiving or the first part of December with the encapsulation.
Really?
And they are anticipating what is normally considered weather at this time of year, and they're girding themselves accordingly and should be able to do that without a problem. If we have 20 days in a row at 50-mile-an-hour winds, I might, on our next program, say they've been delayed slightly.
You know, some might say if it weren't for bad luck, you'd have no luck at all.
We base a lot of our actions on bad luck.
Yeah. How are you coming with what you had originally planned as your schedule? Are you able to stay within eyesight of it?
Yes, but that was
Good
a very
for
good very good way of putting it. I can still see it. It's a long way down there, but it is amazing. And Dave has been incredibly instrumental in discussing with the variety of boards that he is on with the county, as well as dealing with the general public, and trying to continue their understanding from their everyday life where they experience delays, etc., into the fact that this project is no different than what they're already experiencing. And they have to understand that a lot of, like your comment earlier, that we don't see any activity up on the steel scaffold, a lot of that is by design. There was not supposed to be a period of activity between the design and then actually doing work on the cupola. That may have been a little bit longer than we anticipated, and that is a result of the pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. And Dave has been good about taking people's questions, and it's very similar to what yours is. Where are you at? Why don't we see any activity, et cetera? And his ability to make them understand and see exactly what's going on has been a tremendous benefit. I think the transparency, the clarity, and making sure that before you leave a conversation or a meeting, that the other people, all the people, have what they need to have to feel comfortable.
We're very premature in this kind of planning, Mr. Blankenship, but are there any thoughts at all, looking down to next spring or early summer, whatever the case may be, for recognizing the completion of this project and having some sort of a celebration downtown?
There's been no discussion of that, although I'm sure that will occur.
Well, it'd be nice to have the merchants around the square.
I totally agree.
Receive the benefit of that.
I think as this evolves and we get closer, I'm sure plans will be underway to have some type of a grand opening, if you will. But
one thing that I see, and I think it's important to note, Dave has an incredible relationship with the mayor of Lincoln, and they're working together. There's a lot of aspects about this project that involve the city and their relationship with the county and vice versa. And Tracy's just been outstanding. Phenomenal. As far as his cooperation and his interest, his own personal interest in seeing this project and whatever they can do to make it better, make it easier, et cetera, et cetera. So when you asked that question, the first thing I thought of was, I can see Dave and Tracy riding around in a convertible around the square.
Yeah, right.
20, 30 times.
We'll put them on a high, or get a Budweiser type wagon in here with some percherons.
There you go.
Around.
There you go.
Bulletproof vest.
And of course, our mayor doing a good job there, by the way. He knows how important downtown is, and the courthouse is downtown. So,
absolutely. It is vital.
For those naysayers who early on just tear the damn thing down, that is the shortest kind of thing I could conceive, because we're not going to go waxing on about that, but we do have an architectural gem, and the county board of supervisors have seen fit to do something to solve a serious problem. Because we were in danger of losing that building. Am I not correct in that, David?
It would just be a matter of time. The degradation was getting so pronounced and compounding daily, so it would just be a matter of time that it would probably reach the point that there'd be that equilibrium whether or not you'd want to repair it or move on. But from a financial perspective, I don't feel that the county, had the bonding ability or the capability to actually build new, especially given if you factored in tearing that courthouse down, you would chew up a substantial amount of your budget that you would have to build new, and let alone the negative economic impacts to downtown, as Bill had mentioned, would be beyond reason.
One of the great physical feats I remember is a long time ago, Mr. Walter, that downtown, the old courthouse down in the State Capitol building in downtown Springfield, and they took that apart block by block, marked those pieces like a jigsaw puzzle, stored them at the county fair, state fairgrounds, and they created their underground parking lot there and brought that back and put it back like a jigsaw puzzle. And that was a magnificent thing they did to save that historically lovely old architectural gem. And rightfully so.
And it took people then, as it does now with David, and he's not the only one, but he's the most significant one that saw the vision, that saw the necessity, and acted accordingly.
Thank God there are those among us.
Amen. Exactly.
Or we wouldn't have any of these landmarks that we all appreciate, and just kind of assume that they'll always be there and they'll always be firm and standing, and that's not the case, is it?
No, it's always amazing the people that like you were saying a minute ago, Bill, that tear it down. They're the first ones in line that say after it's been torn down, "Wow, we made a mistake." And you have to stand tall and face these people because we understand. I've seen it just because I'm in the business, and and David sees it because he has that ability, which makes him so valuable in this project.
Well, the bottom line of this whole process is that the taxpayers took upon themselves the decision that this is worthwhile, and so they allowed us to pass that referendum so that you could go ahead with this project. And that building might have been gone even before I get out of here.
You can act in haste, repent at leisure, can't you?
That's right.
Judith Kay wasn't going to say anything about that. What about your board discussions, David? Generally speaking, are we well pleased with the way things are going?
In general, I would have to say yes, but there is frustration with the time delays that have been caused by, obviously material availability and the various things we've discussed. So,
heck, you could build a garage and have some frustration.
Bill's been very good about working with the vendors and contractors. We're doing our very best to keep the cost down. For example, the scaffolding, he's been able to work with them, and there's been a lot of concessions that have been offered or given up.
They see their own business and appreciate where they're able to share and help with a common goal. They've been perfect. They've been very good about that.
Good.
The man on the street, it must be awfully difficult to conceive wrapping that big dome in a piece of plastic. And
I have the same problems wrapping Christmas presents.
It's a huge problem.
Yes, It'll be entertaining, it'll be exciting, and it'll be educational for people that are able to observe that in the process. But it makes everything possible then from this point on. And it's not just because we want to work during the wintertime. It is also for whatever work remains next spring, that when the rains come and we have all of the pre-existing materials off the dome, we don't want that exposed to the elements and then have the interior. You can't do that. It's like taking the roof off of your house and wanting to do drywall.
Oh yeah.
It's not very practical. So
terrible.
There's multiple reasons why that's going to be done, and it will benefit us.
648-5510. Put down your Bloody Mary and come to the telephone and have a question for Bill Walter or your representative with the county board, David Blankenship, the erstwhile mayor of Atlanta. I wish we'll make him that mayor for the next few minutes. David, as you go forward, have you consulted with, well, I know you've consulted with Mr. Walter, but what is your, looking down the calendar, what pages will you rip off to get to the month when you will have completed this job?
I would have to say
With removing all the variables.
That's a big deal.
That's a big
yeah,
deal.
I really don't want to commit at this point because there's so many variables involved with what we're facing right now economically. I would hate to even project. I know there was a lot of conversation from the onset of how long this project would take, and each person had their own belief of when a starting date was. Is a starting date when you're talking about it? Is a starting date when people actually first show up? Is a starting date engineering? That's all arbitrary. So at this point, will we meet our goal as far as what we would have met it under previous circumstances? I would say no, it's going to be prolonged.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's going to be prolonged, but I hate to project at this point where we'll be. I think if we get farther down the road and get a better grasp of how things are evolving with the economy, I think we'll be able to give a much more accurate projection.
I'm sure you must have run into some surprises as they go along.
Maybe 1,000 of them.
Yeah, I'll bet. And that's just for starters. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Well, give some of us older people a reason to get our best holt and hang in there because we want to see that completed.
well, I can say this, that when it looks like there's inactivity, you can bet there's activity going on in the offices as far as engineering and planning and alterations and a lot of discussions. There's been a tremendous amount of planning
So don't
discussion.
look up there and see.
Yeah, don't
nobody
be
and think
dismayed by
nothing's going on.
Yeah.
Don't be dismayed by what you're seeing, because what you can't see, there's a lot of activity going, and it's daily. It's on a daily basis. So, and some projects of this magnitude will take as many as 2 years to fully develop the engineering and the design work, and we're 90 to 95% complete with all aspects of that, and so we're in pretty good shape with that regard. So.
Now, your workmen, your professionals, and I use that word advisedly, they did come off the alley somewhere. You've got some trained men up there. When you see people running around or walking around up there, somebody's up there knowing what they're doing.
Right.
Is it difficult, Mr. Walter, to find people with that kind of expertise? And that kind of goes in with this COVID thing. People are finding it difficult to get employees somewhere.
Yeah, that is the oddest combination of both yes and no. If we would have been talking and asking these questions 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I would say yes, there's definitely experts, craftsmen, people that have been doing this for years that are available, and we expect to bring them on board and have them work on your building. Today, when you're asking me that question, we are no different than anybody else. We are having significant difficulties putting together not just individuals, but enough individuals to make the procedures make sense. We have, obviously a new HVAC system that is going to be installed, and if that takes 12 people and we can only get 8, a particular company that normally has been operating with multitude of craftsmen, experienced craftsmen, has suffered the loss like so many contractors have, where the individuals are no longer working, they've contracted the virus, or they're staying home because they make more money doing it that way. Whatever the case may be, if we are seeing the fact that we are having a depletion of workforce. There's still talented people out there. It's taking a lot longer to get the right company, get them vetted, and make sure that they're qualified to do this project. Some of that may involve going a little bit broader outwards and bringing people in. We want to stay as local as humanly possible, and that's getting more difficult.
So. But expertise of that kind is not easily found.
No,
you can't walk down Broadway and say pick the first 10 guys and come up with anybody at all.
That's right.
Before we run out of time, I really like your shirts that you're wearing, your T-shirts. Tell us where we can get them and the color varieties, and describe a little bit about your shirts so that people can go get one.
Very good. I appreciate that. You're looking at the two colors. This is heather gray and safety yellow. I call it banana yellow. They are at Small Town Creations on the square in Lincoln. They are at Flossie's and Delzina's, also on the square, and real close to that is Hallmark. They have shirts in stock. You can just go in and make your purchase. All the proceeds, profits, etc., go right back to the county and are utilized in the restoration program. We anticipate still making these for as long as the project lasts, so we'll conceivably never run out of T-shirts. The actual courthouse design, there was a photograph that an artist took and did a pencil drawing of it, and then Georgia at So Personal Embroidery took and she waved her magic wand and put it all together with obviously the lettering that signifies the restoration program and the year. On the back is CTS, who is one of the design professional companies that are working in the background on this project, putting all the do's and don'ts together. American Scaffolding, who put the scaffold up on the dome, and ourselves, MRTS. So we have our logos on the back, so people can tell walking to you or walking away from you what the deal is.
Okay.
He failed to mention he put a bullseye on the back of mine
Oh, yeah.
for the public, yeah. So.
Do you suppose if I got one for Jean, she'd like that for a Christmas present?
Yeah.
Well, seriously, our guests this morning, David Blankenship and Bill Walter. David representing our county board. And again, you see him on the street somewhere, take him in and buy him a Spirited Republic or a cup of coffee. And Bill Walters representing the professional end of it, who's done a whale of a job managing this whole project. This isn't as easy as fixing a bowl of cereal, folks. This is a very complicated affair up there, and each day brings a new surprise. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for spending your time with us and your expertise. Voters, you see something going on out there, thank our county board for having the foresight to save our Logan County Courthouse.
Amen and amen. Thank you, fellas, very much.